Back in February, I sat down with Paul Vogt to talk about some repeatable best practices and frameworks that's really useful in running anything, really, whether that's your solutions work in pre-sales, doing stuff with post-order sales, implementation in your personal life, whatever. It was a really interesting framework, and I'm really excited to let you know that if you are listening to this today, you still have time to, well, one, listen to this episode, find out about that, but also come to SoulCon in Chicago at the end of the month. Find out more information at PreSalesCollective.com. We've got a link to SoulCon. You can come. It's happening at the end of August. And Paul is running a workshop about what we talk about on this podcast episode. So you don't want to miss that. I want to make sure everyone knows about that right at the start. But welcome, everyone. My name is Jack Cochran. I am General Manager of PreSales Collective and host of the PreSales podcast. This conversation, I actually recorded it in person with Paul when I was traveling earlier this year. I've been really excited to bring it out to you, and I think the timing is perfect today. This is all about the things that you need to do when you're leading a team, or even you as a person when you're setting up processes, how you can make things that are going to be sticky, how they're going to be repeatable, and things that people actually use. I know from personal experience, it's tough to get people to actually do the new things that you roll out as a team, right? You've got these new ideas, and if everyone follows the processes, things are going to go great. But it's really hard to get people to actually do that and to follow it. So that's exactly what Paul and I talked about. Paul, if you don't know him, he spent his career building and scaling teams, especially against a lot of short timelines, long odds, and everything. He's taken on some pretty crazy challenges throughout his career. And currently he is the VP of Pre-Sales and Professional Services at GPG, also author of the Art of Sales Engineering blog, and have been very excited to bring this episode to you. So without further ado, I'm going to let you listen to the episode with Paul and sign up for SoulCon, but do all that right after the break. Today's episode is brought to you by Cellular. Cellular is a part of Consensus, the world's most trusted demo platform, rated #1 in demo automation. Together, Cellular and Consensus bring agent-led, buyer-led, and seller-led demos into one continuous experience, from interactive product tours and AI demo agents to live demos powered by real-time data injection. Every interaction generates demo intelligence that helps revenue leaders shorten deal cycles, increase win rates, and forecast with confidence. Find out more at Cellular.io. Paul, welcome to the Pre-Sales Podcast. I'm excited to have you on the show.
I'm really excited to be here. Thanks for inviting me, Jack.
Absolutely. And it's fun to be in the same room doing the podcast. It's such a change from Zoom anything, Teams anything, especially for recording a show like this.
Absolutely. I love the opportunity to work at home that I think COVID provided, but also sitting in a room with an actual human being having a conversation as opposed to looking at them on a 5-inch screen.
Right. I remember when I was starting in pre-sales and a WebEx call was a rare event. You would have a phone call with customers. If you had to call them on the phone, it would actually be a phone call. And it was rare that you actually get on a video call with someone, much less an internal call would never happen over WebEx. And now that's just all day, nonstop.
1000%. I mean, do you remember the Cisco telepresence units, the room specifically designed to video chat? And now everybody can do it from their phone?
Right. It's crazy. Yeah. Technology is good, the bad, and everything else like that. But I'm excited to be in person doing this old school kind of recording a podcast in person. Glad we get the chance to do it. So Paul, I know you. We've chatted a little bit. Not everybody does though. So for those who don't know you, talk to me a little bit about your career. What got you to the point that you are today?
So in ancient times, many, many years ago, I was that engineer that could talk to people. My first job out of college, I was at a defense contractor, and mostly they wanted us sitting in a room, beating on keyboards. But not long after I was in the role, a more senior engineer that was going out to a customer site got sick, and they decided to send me. And not only did I make a strong positive impression on the customer, but they liked me and my engagement enough that they asked that I was the one that did it the next time. So very quickly, I wasn't behind a desk anymore. I was traveling to customer sites, engaging with them and whatnot. And that led me to team leadership, eventually getting an MBA, working in management. And I've mostly done that for my career. I've been a people manager since about 2.5 years into my career because I find it far more satisfying to help people be successful than just like doing stuff myself. Like I said, I got my MBA Shortly afterwards, I joined a small consulting company and quickly went from an IC to running some of the more complex projects. One of my career highlights comes from that, and a situation I'll never forget. I was part of the team that put up the first cellular network in Alaska. That wasn't that long ago. That was like late 2009, 2010. It was incredibly cool from a technology standpoint, because for anybody that's been to Alaska, you can't just run fiber over it. It's an enormous place with extreme conditions, giant mountains and whatnot. And so we had to build this network that did the vast majority of the communication over satellites. So they'd bounce a signal off a satellite and come down, hit a base station that was generally on the side of a mountain, and use microwave to distribute it throughout the region of coverage. And so it led to incredible challenges integrating all of that into the network. And they also wanted to deliver redundancy into the network, because satellite uplinks, winters in Alaska, those don't mix. And so all the management systems had to be built to assume that they didn't have that backward connectivity. And it was stuff that had never been done before. And then aside from the technology standpoint, it was incredibly rewarding, because we were giving cellular voice and data service to people that used US mail as their primary communication.
Wow, huge steps.
With their family. And I was lucky enough to be at some of the sites when they turned them on. Nome, Alaska is where the Iditarod ends. I distinctly remember people were getting these cell phones and calling their family, and there was like tears in their eyes, people that they had not talked to physically in years. And we were enabling them to do that. It was incredible. That eventually led to helping turn around a product line at Cisco. And then that's when I discovered PreSales was a thing. And, once you discover that, you don't go back.
It's tough. It's tough to get away from it.
So I cut my teeth leading a team selling to AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mo. They were really great as customers. They were tough but fair. And it really helped me learn the ins and outs of enterprise sales before moving on to be employee number 13 at a network automation startup. And that was incredibly challenging. Like, you kind of get spoiled in sales and pre-sales at a large tech company because anybody will talk to you. But we were selling a solution to a problem that most organizations didn't know they had, much less how much it impacted them, and who the heck were we? So we had to be really, really good at discovering their pains and then tailoring to them to be compelling. From there, I moved on to Twilio, which was also taking a big next step. They were just starting to grow the size of their organization. And to give you perspective, there were about 40 pre-sales folks when I joined the organization, which is still a pretty good sized pre-sales organization. When I left, there were 500. In 3 years, I went from running a team of 5 to running a team of around 100 people and several segments. So it was like a crash course in second and third line management, which really forced a lot of growth in myself. And then that led me to my current employer, where I'm lucky to have the opportunity to manage both pre and post sales engineering, binding together two essential parts of the customer lifecycle that generally they're in different parts of an organization with different leadership, and customers kind of fall in the crevasse between them.
I'm seeing that more and more, and there is such a need for it. I do remember one place that I worked whose name shall remain anonymous. You can look up. I've worked in a lot of places. You're not going to guess who it is. There was a customer that churned, and when we went to ask them why, they said, well, we bought the software and no one ever deployed it for us. And 3 years later, they churned, and I kind of was like, yeah, I don't blame you. That's on us. So sorry.
Wow.
So it definitely happens. And it happens, I think, more often than we are willing to admit. And so I've seen a lot of that, the changing happen of, hey, this can't be a gap anymore, because to the customer, that's the most critical point. And we've got it as a built-in gap in most companies.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The head of customer success at my current employer has this chart that's the reasons that customers churn. And by percentage, statistical analysis done by somebody, but 70% of customer churn risk, according to his chart, which I'm sure he totally didn't make up, is driven by the customer onboarding experience.
I can believe that.
And so if you don't do a clean handover and you don't set that customer up for success early, they don't feel loved and taken care of, you're already 1 foot out the door.
And I've been on the receiving end of poor onboarding, and it's definitely I don't see any reason why I would stick around when this contract ends. Like, you've already made that decision before you even started using it. And you're just trying to eke value out until you can leave, which is, you don't want your customer to be there. But we do that. We do that to them.
Yeah. And today, in this day and age, it is so easy for a customer to change vendors.
Yeah. It used to be not that easy, but now you're absolutely right.
I mean, you and I are both old enough that we remember when a customer bought something, they spent millions of dollars on hardware and then years of services to turn something up. And now it's like, all right, I'm going to integrate to this new API. I'm going to vibe code it. So I'm done in 8 minutes, and goodbye bad vendor. Hello new vendor.
Right. It's not a decision. It's not a point you have to consider. You're not thinking about the implementation costs like you used to. You're thinking about, well, they're slightly cheaper year over year. Okay. That can often be the only choice. It's $100 less a year. Great.
Yeah, it took me 5 minutes to shift, so I'm going to save that.
Yeah, new URL to go to, guys, and slightly different UI, but pretty much the same product. We need to pay attention to it, but we don't. Which is kind of close to the topic that we're supposed to be talking about. Because people are probably joining saying, when are they going to talk about that thing they said they were going to, which is repeatable methodologies, which is something that I'm excited to have this conversation. It was very fun talking to you, thinking about, hey, what could we talk about on the podcast? And I try to look for when I'm talking to someone, something that makes their eyes sparkle a little bit, as much as you can see sparkle over Zoom, which that's questionable. You mentioned repeatable methodologies, and I'm like, wait, you seem like you really are into that and excited about that. And you really were. So I want to let people have a little bit of a flavor about that. Talk to me a little bit about why that's so pivotal from your experience for sales teams and why that's actually crucial to team success.
I'll cover it again of 2 pieces. How I realized it was a thing and how I've really leveraged it to have an impact on the business. When I was at this network automation startup, iTential, their CEO, Ian Bresnahan, who I reported to, was just constantly hammering us on preparation and planning. And I don't know where he got them, but he had dozens of tiny little acronyms and catchphrases that he was always beating into us. And I think at the time, I didn't really understand the importance, but he was consistently right. PGA, which is one of my ongoing methodologies that I'm sure we'll talk about at some point, came from him. The concept of chasing business objectives and compelling events came from him. I'm really grateful that he took the time to help guide me because it's had such an impact on the rest of my career. And back to the comment about, we were selling a product that solved a problem most people didn't understand they had, much less how much it impacted them. Like, we had to be ultra compelling with those customers, and his paradigms helped us be compelling in that engagement. So that's kind of how I got into it, just organically through him. But the value of them really hit me when I was at Twilio, because that organization, it was all about scale. When I built out the mid-market organization at Twilio, the SE mid-market organization, I had to hire, ramp, and onboard new SEs at a stupid rate. In my first year, my team went from 5 to 18.
Oh, wow, that's a lot.
The next year, I hired 2 managers and we went up to 32 team members. So the question becomes, well, how do you get that many new people into the organization, get them all firing the same cylinders, giving the customers a good experience and operating successfully?
And a consistent experience too. So you're not worried about what the one customer's not getting something different from everybody else.
Exactly. Because we were seeing success with a lot of just applying repeatable paradigms, I was given responsibility over our small and medium business organization. We called it Grove, who was having problems with that because they were scaling, and a whole bunch of SEs and frankly salespeople that didn't really have clear direction and all operating in individual manners. By the way, while still being responsible for my mid-market team, worked to apply the same methodologies over there with them, and it worked. And not only did it work from a management or an outcome perspective, but the members of the organization all had a stronger job satisfaction. They collaborated better, like all the, not just the numbers, but the touchy-feely things that you want as a leader of an organization. And so the idea of making easy to understand, easy to measure, repeatable, impactful paradigms, really helped me and the good folks that I had the opportunity to work with drive through some pretty tough odds. And I've been doing it ever since.
Give me an example of that. Walk me through one of your repeatable methods, something that's simple to understand, because I hear you in concept, but I'm like, yeah, but how can I make this happen for me? Because I don't think I could think off the top of my head something simple to implement that would have that much repetition to it.
I'll start with one of my favorite ones. It's the concept of the technical win. Generally, it's viewed in our industry as when an SE says, yep, we're done with this, stamp of approval, customer set up for success, right? You've had technical.
Yeah, I've been there before.
All right. Have you ever been in an organization that defined it?
I mean, defined it specifically. I think that my answer might give you everything you need to know. I think we've tried, but I think if you asked anyone on the team, you get a different answer.
Absolutely. Like my opinion is different from yours, which is, a senior is going to give a different answer than a junior.
Right. Absolutely.
Which means there's no consistency and you're really opening up your organization to risks that somebody could drive a truck through. So what we did, and this was my mid-market team, while we were hiring, growing 400% or whatever, I sat the team down and I challenged them. Let's come up with a list of 4 or 5 questions. They had to be binary, yes or no answers.
No qualitative answer, had to be a yes or no.
Had to be a yes or no. If you could confidently answer yes to all those questions, everybody agreed we were done. This customer was set up for success. They all loved the idea. And over a course of a couple of days sitting in a room together, we didn't do this the whole time, by the way, but you'd work on it for a little bit and then you'd do something else. You come back to it. We came up with what I think are like 5 questions that if we could answer yes to those questions, everybody was confident that the deal was done. I actually had to go write them down just to make sure I got them correctly, but this is Twilio, so it's a software as a service company. It's very focused on developer first. We didn't even have a services organization. So the 5 questions were, have we completed the customer's security process and resolved any issues? Have we confirmed the customer's compliance requirements? And do they have approval?
That's a big second part of that, yeah.
Have we earned the recommendation from the key technical stakeholder? And is the solution aligned in a way that resolves the customer's business objectives? And then lastly, does the customer resources have the skills to successfully deploy and maintain the solution? So if you could answer yes to all 5 of those, then you had a technical win. And it had a much bigger impact on the organization than I anticipated. I was thinking it'd get me over my annoyance that everybody had a different reason or a different view of the win, because it helped guide how we did forecasting. It helped guide how we do mentoring and coaching. It helped guide how my business partner engaged with the SEs during the weekly forecast, because we were all referencing the questions. Yes, yes, yes.
And it gave you all a very referenceable quantitative goal to shoot for as well. Oh, so we only have 2 of those 3. This 4th one, are we moving towards that goal or not? And why aren't we?
Exactly. And what's the lead time on that last one?
Yeah.
Before this, we would get to the finish line and we'd realize we hadn't completed the customer's internal security process. And you talk to the security guy and the head of security be like, well, our process is a minimum of 3 months. Okay. Out of the quarter.
Or you'd run into someone new who suddenly had an opinion on the project you didn't realize before by saying you have to go to security or compliance review. And I've definitely seen some strict experience on that one. I've had a deal die because we thought we were there. And during a security review, we found new stakeholders who did not agree.
I had such a similar experience. We had this giant opportunity with a bank in the US. The salesperson argued up and down that his stakeholder, his champion, said that we could avoid the security review process. Argued. We're going to close this deal without your technical win. And then when they got paperwork over there for signature, the CSO said, nope. And he made us wait 5 months. Anyway, so that's a simple concept. Break the technical win down to 4 or 5 questions that give everybody confidence that the all SEs can agree that if you can answer yes to that questions, then you have a technical win. Now, where you take it from there, it gets crazy because we got to the point where our revenue operations folks were able to more accurately forecast the viability of a deal and the deal close timeline based on how my solutions engineers were tracking the technical win. And they found it far more accurate than the way the salespeople were.
You say this, and I'm like, of course this makes sense. But it sometimes takes someone saying something very logical for you to catch on. Because if we think of what typically goes into a forecast call, it's, well, good relationships. They've told me that they have buy-in. They've told me it's all this more squishy logic saying they know they have to be up, so they're going to do everything they can. Yes, but we haven't done security or compliance review. Those often take 4 or 5 months. Like the things that we know take time, or the things we know that will hold up a deal are not there. So including those as measures, of course, it's going to be more accurate. Like I'm sitting here saying, of course, but I wasn't the one who thought of them. But of course.
And I think that's what it comes down to with, repeatable methodologies. I'm not the sharpest engineer. By default, I'm kind of a methodical person. I go back to the old adage, if you have to do something more than twice, then why don't you just come up with an approach for it? And I also have the opportunity to stand on the shoulders of giants and learn from what they've done. And it's like, all right, how do I simplify something down to where other folks can do it? We can do it repeatedly.
Yeah. I'm thinking of something that I actually remember reading on a blog post that you'd made that I think relates to this a lot, which was your PGA framework. I think you mentioned before purpose, goal, and agenda for customer meetings, which is a little bit different than kind of the closed plan, but I feel like it kind of very much relates to this. I don't want to tell your story for you. So the PGA framework, how does that fit into the broader picture of this methodology-driven SE organization?
Well, first off, I got to give credit to Ian Bresnahan, who's the one that drilled this into my soul. But the idea behind it is so very basic, and yet it's so critical. And it pushes us to step back and think about the next meeting. I don't know about you and your time in your pre-sales, but it's so easy for me. I have 8 meetings today. I'm just going to go from meeting to meeting. I'm not going to think about it. I'm going to show up. I'm just going to do it. You're not necessarily set up for success. So the idea behind the PGA purpose, what does the customer want out of the call? What are they expecting from us? And the goal is, what do we want out of the call? And then the agenda is, how we deliver both. It sounds so simple, yet it's so deep. I'll give you a perfect example. I was chatting with one of my engineers this morning. We're preparing for an incredible opportunity with a rental car company, and they're planning for that next call with the company. And he's done all this work creating this custom demo for them. It looks fantastic. And I was like, all right, well, what is the outcome that we want out of this call? And he's like, I don't know. It's like, okay, well, in your perfect world, you nail this call and we go on to the next thing. What is that next thing? And he thought about it for a minute. He's like, I think we need to sit down with their engineers and start talking about their environment. Perfect. Get with your salesperson, align on that, make sure that y'all are clear. Call goes well. We want access to their engineers that own their systems. Got it? Got it. Good. That's the goal. But if you're just focusing on what you're doing inside a call, you're never really thinking about the customer's expectations or the next step that you want. I'd say that good salespeople love this type of approach. There's that aha moment when it lights up to them. Like, I could see you light up when you talked about it a little bit. Like, one of the salespeople that I work with, like, he does it on his own meetings that have nothing to do with folks in my organization. But the more organized you get around a methodical approach to making sure that you're set up for success on those customer calls, the more likely you are to get the next call and the less likely you are to waste, yours and your customer's time. And I could tell you some crazy stories as a result of not doing that.
I actually have quite a few. I've lived by a similar mantra under different words for many times, which was saying that, every call has an outcome, but if you're not sure what you're aiming for, you get a random one. That's kind of what happens. I mean, I remember a call very specifically. It was a call that we had planned. This was drilled into me from a mistake. We planned for this for days. Like, you fly everyone in, you rehearse everything. We walked in, we did the meeting, we did everything we planned for in the meeting. We walked out and we went, so was that a good or a bad thing? I don't know. We really didn't figure out what was supposed to happen next. So even though we executed, we don't know what the outcome was because we didn't plan for and shoot for a target together. We were hoping for a random outcome, hoping that it would spin right in the dice, as opposed to planning for the outcome as much as anything else. It's so critical to make sure you're all aligned with that and you know what you're shooting for.
Absolutely. Well, and taking the time to think about the customer's expectations. What are they expecting out of the call? It's so easy to be like, all right, we're going to do discovery call. All right, we're going to do a demo, or we're going to do this. And it's like, what is the customer expecting? Like,
why are they here? Why are they showing up?
15 people accepted this call, right? Do all 15 people expect the same thing? What are their roles? How do we tailor them? I remember in a prior organization, we were having a demo with a large automobile manufacturer, and the salesperson got super excited and they engaged 2 of the folks on my team to build 2 completely custom demos. And thank goodness for the invention of Gong, because it was on recording. They all got on the call and the salesperson, teed the call up, and the customer who brought 3 members of their security organization was like, I don't want to see your demos. I thought we were here to talk about your security posture.
Oh, wow.
And neither of those SEs were in a position to talk about security posture. The entire call was less than 8 minutes. I was like, how did we think we were demonstrating our products? And the customer thought we were going to dig into all the security stuff.
I think it's a good question to keep in mind. And one thing that I've got stuck in my mind is I've seen this both in person and on virtual. So this virtual, it's no different. But I think we've all been in those meetings where we've felt like, I don't want to be here. Now, customers, when they don't want to be at your meeting, you'll have people who are nice enough to stick around. But you know who doesn't? Is usually the key decision maker and the executive. They will all of a sudden check their phone and be like, oh, I got to run, or just get up and walk out of the meeting if it's in person. And that's your indication. Nope, this wasn't worthwhile to me. I have something more worthwhile than listening to you. We didn't plan for what everyone in the room is interested in. And you have to keep in mind that the people who are too polite to walk out, you're making them really upset because they are trying to be nice to you, but they want to be anywhere else right now. So you have to make sure you're thinking about what they want to see.
1,000%. And it's just too easy to get into that role where you're not thinking about it. Right. You're staying very at the what baseline.
Well, this is what we always do. This is always the next meeting. It doesn't matter. This customer is different than every other customer because they all are.
Absolutely. Especially when you get into key stakeholders, they always have very particular things that they're after.
This kind of gets into something else I know you've written about, the lost art of the prep call. And this is kind of what we're talking about. You said you can kind of assess a little bit about when an organization is not doing what they need to do to align. So what are those warning signs to look for if someone's listening saying, you know what, I feel like we don't prep the way we're supposed to. We walk into those rooms not expecting an outcome, not being aligned with the customer. What should you look for in an organization to know if this is something you need to address?
I think, a couple of years ago, I probably would have answered this with more of a gut kind of answer. It's like you start assessing, you listen to some recordings, and then you go with your gut. But I really encourage folks to start to look at metrics. Where do our deals slow down? Where do our deals fall off? If you don't have metrics in place, start getting them in place. Because if you can start to measure where things get slowed down or stuck, you know where to focus. For example, if you're doing a lot of proof of concepts and they're not turning into wins, then there's probably something related to proof of concepts that you're not doing well. One of my previous employers, our POC to win rate was like 25%. There's a ton of effort, and these weren't giant deals that we're winning. And, a good organization, their POC to win rate is north of 70%. Some of them are north of 80%. So if you're sub 50, you're not getting there. But I was catching up with one of my former employees recently. She was looking for some coaching. And one of the things that she mentioned is what happens when you start to remove the methodologies. And I think that comes closer to the answer to your question, because she experienced it firsthand. I got a new opportunity. I left the organization. And the next leader that came in just slowly decided that the paradigms that I'd built into our business weren't necessary. And the more of them that he removed, the more chaos it brought. New team members came on board and they were confused. Are their sales cycles become less reliable, and deal timelines slipped, and they ended up doing a lot of wasted effort. Those type of outcomes are suggestions of where we need to focus in on creating repeatable approaches that everybody can get aligned with, because repeatable approaches bring you to repeatable outcomes. It's like when Tiger Woods goes and practices, he's not picking out 15 different golf courses and going and playing, all the holes there. No, he's like, all right, today I'm going to work on my putt. He's going to get the best coaches to come in and focus on him doing his putt. And he's going to putt 1,000 times. We as pre-sales engineers need to consider ourselves like the athletes and do the same type of approaches that they do.
Yeah. And practice, which is, I feel like we could do a whole other episode on the need to practice not in front of your customer, to practice on your own before you're in front of your customer.
Oh my goodness. I could give a symposium on that, dude.
For anyone listening, if they're like, hey, they want to pick your brain directly, how could someone get a hold of you to chat more or just to connect with you?
Yeah, I'd say two ways. One, I'm obviously on LinkedIn, like every professional in the world is required to nowadays. It's a great way. Secondly, I do have a blog that I infrequently post on, but that you can also get a hold of me there. It's artofsalesengineering.com. And, if you've got questions or got perspectives or just want to shoot the breeze on sales engineering, I'm happy to always chat about that.
Excellent. And the final thing, since there's so much we didn't get to, what would be kind of your final thoughts? Something you want to leave someone with? Can be we talked about, or can be hot take if you like. What's your final thoughts?
The final thought I want to leave everybody with here is it doesn't have to be complicated. You should really focus in on small, impactful changes that can happen to your business. If you're an SE leader and you're trying to figure out how to make your team work better, look at where your SEs are having pain and focus on there. If you roll out something simple, repeatable that makes their lives easier, they're all going to get on board and they're going to start to engage and be more interested in doing stuff in that manner. It kind of goes back to Ted Lasso. I hope everybody here has seen Ted Lasso that's in leadership, because it's like the best leadership education course I've ever watched. Ted Lasso's first move isn't to change a bunch of stuff. It is to find the key people he needs to get on board. If Roy Kent doesn't lean in with him, Ted fails. If Nate doesn't get discovered and leans in with him, Ted fails. He starts by fixing a couple of small things. And then from there, he starts to build. He even fixes the water pressure in the shower. It's like all those little things build up, and then everybody's engaging together. So that's what I'd leave folks with.
I love it. Lessons from Ted Lasso to leave us with. Well, Paul, thanks so much for being on the PreSales podcast. It's been a pleasure having you here. And yeah, we'll hope to talk to you again soon.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Jack.
Thank you for listening to the PreSales podcast by PreSales Collective. Did you know that we also post on the PreSales Collective blog following each episode? Head there to read through information on shows you might have missed or find another past episode to listen to. For more information on the PreSales podcast itself and to listen to those past episodes, visit presalescollective.com/podcast.